No way. Every balance is zero? This is unbelievable. I'm free. Zero balances everywhere. Yes!
Imagine waking up tomorrow and every credit card balance in America hits zero. Every mortgage paid in full. Every student loan erased. Every car note settled. $35 trillion of obligation just gone. Sounds like financial paradise, right? Here's the problem. The entire modern economy would collapse within 72 hours. Not because we'd run out of money, but because debt isn't actually a burden on the system. It's the fuel. And if everyone stopped borrowing at once, the machine doesn't slow down. It seizes. Let me show you why. Right now, across the United States, households carry about $17 trillion in debt. Mortgages, credit cards, auto loans, student debt. The number's so large it stops meaning anything. But here's what does matter. Someone owns that debt. And to them, it's not a liability. It's an asset. Your mortgage isn't just your problem. It's a pension fund's monthly income. Your credit card balance isn't just your stress. It's a bank's profit engine. Your car payment isn't just your budget line. It's a bondholder's guaranteed return. Debt is a two-sided coin. For every borrower in the red, there's a lender in the black. And the moment you pay off your side, their side disappears too. So what happens when everyone pays off everything at once? Let's start with the obvious winner, you. No more interest payments. No more minimum due. No more calls from collectors or anxiety about missed payments. You own your house outright. Your car. Your degree. Everything's yours free and clear. And for about 6 hours, it feels incredible. Then the banks open. Commercial banks in the U.S. hold about $12 trillion in loans on their balance sheets. Those loans generate interest. That interest pays for the staff, the branches, the technology, the dividends to shareholders. It's not just profit. It's operational oxygen. When every loan gets paid off overnight, that oxygen disappears. Banks don't just lose future interest. They lose the collateral structure that allows them to lend more. See, banks don't actually keep your deposit in a vault. They lend it out. Your checking account balance is really just a promise. The bank's counting on the fact that you won't ask for all of it back at the same time everyone else does. But now there's no loan to make, no interest to earn. And suddenly, billions of dollars in expected revenue just vanished. The banks that were too leveraged, too dependent on that interest income, start folding. Small regional banks go first. Then the larger ones wobble. The Federal Reserve steps in, obviously. Emergency liquidity. Rate cuts. But cutting rates doesn't help when no one's borrowing. Because here's the next problem. No one needs to borrow anymore. You just paid off your mortgage. Why would you take out another one? You cleared your credit cards. Why would you run them back up? The entire consumer credit market freezes. Not because credit isn't available, but because no one wants it. And that's when the real cascade starts. Mortgage lenders stop originating loans. The securitization market, the place where mortgages get bundled and sold to investors, goes silent. Trillions of dollars in mortgage-backed securities, the same financial instruments that nearly destroyed the economy in 2008, lose their underlying value. Pension funds were counting on those. Insurance companies. Sovereign wealth funds. They bought those securities expecting 30 years of steady payments. Now the payments stop. Not because of default, because of payoff. And legally, financially, that's not a default. But the effect is the same. Revenue disappears. Pension funds can't meet obligations. Retirees don't get checks. Insurance companies can't pay claims. Endowments can't fund universities. The global bond market, worth over $100 trillion, starts to fracture. Now let's talk about the auto industry. 85% of new car sales in the U.S. are financed. People don't buy cars with cash. They take out loans. Those loans get bundled into asset-backed securities and sold to investors, just like mortgages. If everyone pays off their car loan tomorrow and stops financing new purchases, auto sales crater. Not because people don't want cars, but because the industry's entire pricing model assumes financing. A $40,000 car sounds expensive, but a $400 monthly payment? That's manageable. Take away the financing, and people start seeing the full price again. Sales drop 40, maybe 50%. Ford, GM, Toyota, They're not just car companies. They're financing companies that happen to make cars. Ford Credit, GM Financial. These divisions make more profit than the vehicles themselves. Without financing, they bleed. Plants close. Dealers shutter. Hundreds of thousands of jobs disappear. And it's not just autos. Appliances, furniture, electronics. Almost everything in the modern retail economy is sold on credit. Best Buy offers financing. Ashley Furniture offers financing. Even Peloton offers financing. You think people are paying $3,000 cash for a stationary bike? Consumer spending makes up 70% of U.S. GDP, and consumer spending runs on credit. Take away the credit, and spending doesn't just decline. It collapses. Retailers cut inventory. Manufacturers cut production. Shipping slows. Warehouses sit half-empty. The entire supply chain, which spent decades optimizing for constant flow, suddenly has nothing to move. Unemployment spikes. Not because companies want to fire people, but because there's no demand. And here's the cruel irony. People have no debt. They're financially free, but they also have no job. Now let's zoom out. The U.S. government carries $35 trillion in debt. Treasury bonds, the safest asset in the world. Except they're only safe because they pay interest. And they only pay interest because the government keeps issuing new debt to cover old debt. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's a liquidity cycle. As long as people keep buying bonds, the system works. But if every individual and corporation just paid off all their debt, where did that money come from? Savings, assets, liquidation, which means people sold stocks, pulled money from funds, cashed out investments. The stock market doesn't just dip, it craters. Trillions in market cap evaporate. Retirement accounts cut in half. Wealth inequality, which debt was quietly masking, becomes instantly visible. And now the government's in trouble too, because tax revenue collapses along with economic activity. The IRS collects less income tax because fewer people are working, less capital gains tax because no one's investing, less corporate tax because companies aren't profitable. Meanwhile, safety net costs explode. Unemployment benefits, Medicaid, food assistance. The government needs to spend more precisely when it's taking in less. So it issues more bonds, tries to borrow. But who's buying? Normally, foreign governments buy U.S. debt. China holds about $1 trillion. Japan about the same. But they buy U.S. bonds because they need a place to park trade surpluses. They sell us goods. We send them dollars. They buy our debt. Except in this scenario, U.S. consumer spending just fell off a cliff. We're not buying their goods anymore. So they're not accumulating dollars. They don't need our bonds. The Federal Reserve becomes the buyer of last resort. It prints money and buys government debt directly, which is technically legal but historically catastrophic. Because when central banks start printing money to fund government operations, inflation follows. Not the 2 or 3% kind, the double-digit kind. Prices rise. Wages don't. People who just escape debt find themselves trapped by a different force, currency devaluation. The dollar weakens. Imports get expensive. Gas, electronics, clothing, anything made overseas costs more. And here's the final twist. People start borrowing again. Not because they want to, because they have to. The thing about debt is that it's not just a financial instrument. It's a time machine. It lets you buy something today that you couldn't otherwise afford until years from now. It pulls future earnings into the present. And in an economy built on growth, that's not optional. It's structural. Without debt, there's no growth. Without growth, there's no employment. Without employment, there's no income. Without income, there's no spending. The economy doesn't run on money. It runs on the circulation of money. And debt is what keeps it circulating. So when everyone pays off their debt at once, the circulation stops. The velocity of money drops to zero. And everything that depends on that velocity, which is everything, starts dying. It's not a moral failure. It's not corruption. It's not greed. It's design. The modern financial system wasn't built to eliminate debt. It was built to manage it, to spread it, to make it bearable enough that people keep participating. And most of the time, that works. You pay your mortgage for 30 years, and at the end, you own a house. You finance a car, and it gets you to work so you can earn the money to pay off the car. You borrow for college, and hopefully the degree increases your earning power enough to justify the cost. Debt isn't the enemy. Unsustainable debt is. But sustainability depends on everyone playing the same game. Borrowing a little, paying a little, keeping the wheel turning. The moment everyone tries to step off the wheel at once, the wheel doesn't stop. It breaks. And the people who get hurt aren't the ones who invented the system. They've already hedged. They've already diversified. They own assets that don't depend on your debt. The people who get hurt are the ones who thought freedom from debt meant freedom. So what if everyone paid off their debt tomorrow? You'd be free, and you'd be broke. Because in a system built on obligation, liberation isn't victory. It's collapse. And maybe that tells you something about the system. Or maybe it just tells you how deep we're already in.